I never thought I'd be the one to bring it up. Not him. Not after a fight. Not in one of those moments where words spill out because silence feels unbearable. It came from me, calm, measured, almost rehearsed. We were sitting across from each other late at night, the house finally quiet. No phones. No television humming in the background. Just the low light above the kitchen table and the sound of him stirring his tea, the spoon tapping softly against the cup. I watched his hands while I spoke. I always did that when I was nervous. "I've been thinking," I said. "About us." He smiled, the familiar one. The safe one. The smile that had followed me through years of marriage, routines, shared jokes, and predictable nights. "That sounds dangerous," he joked. I laughed too quickly. Because this wasn't a joke. "I want to ask you something," I continued. "And I want you to really hear me before you answer." That made him pause. The spoon stopped moving. His eyes lifted to mine, curious now. "Hey," he said. "I'm listening." I took a breath that felt heavier than it should have. "I want us to try something different." The word hung between us. Different. Not wrong. Not forbidden, yet. Just different. He leaned back slightly, studying me. "Different how?" I looked away just for a second, then back at him. "Not like that," I said quickly. "Not what you're thinking." He raised an eyebrow. "Then what am I thinking?" I smiled, but my heart was racing. "That this is about fixing something." "It's not. At least, not exactly." The truth was harder to say out loud. I hadn't been unhappy. But I hadn't been fully awake either. There was a restlessness inside me I couldn't name. A quiet hunger that had nothing to do with dissatisfaction and everything to do with curiosity. About myself. About him. About the version of us that existed before we learned each other too well. "I just want us to be honest," I said. "Braver than we've been." His expression softened. "I thought we were honest." "We are," I said. "But there's honesty, and then there's truth." That's when he went quiet. He didn't interrupt. Didn't joke. Didn't rush to reassure me. And somehow that silence felt more dangerous than any argument we'd ever had. "What are you asking me to try?" he finally said. I swallowed. "I want us to talk about the things we don't say," I replied. "The thoughts we dismiss before they reach our mouths. The questions we pretend we don't have." He exhaled slowly. "That's a big ask." "I know." He stared at the table for a moment, then back at me. "Is there something specific you're circling around?" I nodded. My pulse thudded in my ears. "There's one question," I said. "And once I ask it, I don't know if we'll be able to unhear it." His jaw tightened slightly. "Ask it." I hesitated. This was the line. The point of no return. "If you weren't my husband," I said quietly, "would you still choose me?" The room changed. Not dramatically. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just a shift. Like the air itself had leaned in. He blinked. Once. Twice. "That's not a fair question," he said slowly. "I know," I replied. "But it's an honest one." He leaned forward now, elbows on the table. "Why would you ask that?" "Because I sometimes wonder," I admitted, "if love has become habit. If desire has become loyalty. If we're choosing each other. Or just continuing." His eyes searched my face as if looking for something he'd missed all these years. "You think I don't desire you?" he asked. "That's not what I said. But it's what you're afraid of." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He sat back, running a hand through his hair. "And what's my role in this experiment of yours?" "I want you to ask yourself the same thing," I said. "Without marriage. Without history. Without obligation." He was quiet for a long time. So long I started to regret everything. Then he spoke. "If I'm being honest," he said, "I don't know." That was the moment everything cracked open. Not because he said no, but because he didn't say yes. "I love you," he continued quickly. "That hasn't changed." "I know," I said. "But that question," he added, "it makes me realize how much of my choosing has been unconscious." I nodded. "That's what scares me." He looked at me differently then. Not as his wife. Not as his certainty. But as a woman sitting across from him, asking to be seen without the safety net of vows. "You're asking for danger," he said. "I'm asking for truth." He smiled faintly. "Those two usually come together." The conversation didn't end that night. It stretched into days. Into pauses and glances. Into moments where our hands almost touched and the air between us felt electric again. Uncertain, unowned. Something had shifted. We were still married. Still together. But no longer hiding behind the comfort of labels. And in that space between familiarity and choice, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Desired not because he was my husband, but because suddenly he was deciding. Every day. Just like I was. And that one question, it didn't break us. It stripped us bare.